Hello out there. Josh Turner here, PRT, Paranormal Round Table. That's our show. We are about to do one. My name is Josh Turner, but they call me Wolf. And my co-host is with me tonight. You want to say hello?
Hey everyone, it's Anthony.
Anthony. And although he's not thrilled to be here, I'm thrilled that I have somebody here with me because this is a spooky...
I'm never thrilled for anything.
Yeah, this is a very spooky place, and he makes it even more spooky. So,
not spooky to me.
Yeah, it's just spooky because you're here to me. That's my reality.
Oh, okay.
My reality, mine.
Well, that's your problem to deal with, not mine.
Exactly, because I just try not to look at him. I'm trying to look him directly in the eye because it's scary.
Yeah, I don't like that because then I feel kind of obligated to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to do all that.
Yeah, exactly. American Psycho over here.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
Anthony's the American Psycho over here.
My pain is cold and sharp, and I do not wish for a better world for anyone.
So, what we have tonight, we're going to get into some weird stuff. But first, let me give you the email address and the website. The website is prtpodcast.com. And the email address is joshturner@prtpodcast.com. And let me give you the P.O. Box number you can send things to because everybody keeps asking for that. 6001 West Palmer Lane, Suite 370, PMB 131, Austin, Texas 78727. Once again, that's 6001 West Palmer Lane, Suite 370, PMB 131, Austin, Texas 78727. And I've been given a lot of really cool stuff. And I also do giveaways. We will put this link to this show, like we do all the shows, in the Paranormal Roundtable group. And if you're not a member, go join. It's free. Just go to Facebook and join. And if you leave a comment, you're automatically entered to win an autographed book or some PRT merchandise or both. So we will have one, sometimes two winners a week on these the Friday shows, and then we do it for the live stream too. You want to tell them about the live stream?
Oh yeah, the live stream is only on YouTube. It's a YouTube exclusive. We don't put that on Spotify or iTunes or any of the podcast platforms. Go over YouTube, subscribe if you don't have an account. Make an account just to subscribe and hit the like button. And it's every Tuesday we started between 7:30 and 8:30. Within that time frame, it usually goes from anywhere from 2 to 3.5 hours usually. And we usually get like 300 or 400 people in there consistently, and it's a pretty cool place. You should go check it out.
300 or 400 during the live, and then of course you can always go back and watch it in the archives. I think we've done 54 or 55 episodes on the live stream now, with hours and hours of content that you won't find on the podcast. So here on the podcast, though, we have our own shows. This is how we started. We just started doing a Friday podcast. That was it. And then we went into the live streams on YouTube, and it's been going. Now, this is coming up in April. Will be our third year with PRT. So we're doing well, and we like to do good quality work, and we do a lot of hard work, research. My wife helps. Anthony helps. Tony Mushu, we call him. He helps. My friend Gary Scorpion, he helps, and my brother Russell. Diablo. We all are kind of a team / family, and we all get together and we help. And then we have a few outside people that help us too. And I'm a manager of, what do you call it? The admin of a lot of groups. And I will read those off to you. So if you were interested in joining any of the groups that I admin for, I do Paranormal Roundtable. Obviously, that's the main group that I do. And then Paranormal Lounge, which belongs to Nelly. Paranormal Encounters, which belongs to Mushu. The Wolf Turner of PRT fan page, that's run by Chris Clough and Chris Turner and Phil Stern. The Quad Coalition of Sciences, which is Nick Valente and D.A. Roberts, and then Paranormal Roundtable Prayer Group, which was created by my wife and a friend of hers, and this Whisper to a Scream podcast with Ryan Tremblay, who I do a lot of work with. Paranormal Trucker podcast, John King. Dogman Werewolf Discussion, which is Della Carter and Phil Stern, and then North American Dogman Project Region 2, and I am an admin in that too. So those are some of the people that I deal with and some of the groups that I manage. And we have a lot of people who go into those groups, and we get a lot of stories. And I'm in probably about 200 groups, and that is a lot. And so I use those groups to get stories and to correspond with people and to, bring you a quality show. And I do a lot of research. I'm pretty much constantly busy doing research and getting stories. What I have tonight, we're going to talk about some space-time anomalies. And as of the recording of this, I don't know what it's going to be called. Anthony's going to have to make up his mind what he wants to call it. He names these. But what I mean by these space-time, like glitches in the Matrix. And what I mean by that is like these are not normal events. You walk outside, you just go to your car, you get in, you drive to the store, and you go home, and you make dinner, and very mundane, innocuous things. No, this is like people go to do these things, and something weird happens. Okay, I'll start with one that's not. This one's not like real, like amazing or anything like that. But it's not real long, but I'll say it's not real long, but it is kind of amazing to me. Let's put it that way. And this happened to a woman in Louisville, Kentucky. She had gone out to her vehicle with just like a normal day. She picked up her son and her daughter from school. The daughter, I think, had cheerleader practice, something like that. She was 15. The son, I think, was 8 or 9. I think it was 9. And so she went and she picked them up, or her and the son were at home, and they went and picked up the daughter from cheerleading practice, and then they went to the local grocery store. Sounds like a normal thing, right? So they loaded up the SUV, got the groceries, and then they drove home. Very mundane, very innocuous. It's just it was a Wednesday afternoon, very middle of the week. Nothing spectacular, nothing special. Nothing was going on special or spectacular. And what happens when they get home? They open the back of the SUV and there's no groceries.
What, did they just forget them or what?
No, there were no groceries. So they're like, what the heck? Every one of them
sounds like a Mandela effect.
Remembers them putting the groceries into the back of the SUV. So then she freaks out. The kids are freaking out. They're like, what? They're just shaking their heads. They can't, here's the thing. There were a couple little items that were still in, like on the floor. On like there was like a couple bananas and like a broken egg and a couple other things. Like, what the heck is going on? So she goes back to the grocery store. She goes inside and she says, hey, I bought some groceries here, and she didn't have a receipt. And some of these people, she shops there regularly, right? They're like, okay, well, we remember, we know you, but you weren't here today. You didn't buy groceries here. And she's like, I checked out at this register right here, and there was a young man that checked me out. She said the guy's name. She said, she shops there all the time. The guy he didn't even work that day. So what was going on?
Jeez.
I mean, yeah. Okay. That's just to start off, folks. That's just to get you to whet your appetite of what I'm talking about. I would say that these anomalies that happen are some of the most abundant stories I get. I get little, stories from Messenger and from my email and on Instagram, and you're going like, what is this? And then you read these little things, and now sometimes these are accompanied by like missing time, obviously is alien abduction. That's obviously what's going on there. And then some of these are accompanied by what I would call hauntings. They're associated with a haunting. And what I mean by that is, I'll get into one right now. I'll tell you what this one is very strange. Let me ask you your opinion, though, my esteemed colleague. What was going on with that?
That sounds like a Mandela effect to me. The three of them remember grocery shopping, but no one else does. And I would have felt like I'm being lied to, and probably asked to see some kind of security footage or something, like some kind of surveillance, just so I can see for myself, like that I wasn't there.
So you would be like, oh, I'm being punked by the entire store, and how do you explain?
No. I wouldn't first assume that people were messing with me. I didn't word that correctly. I would first assume that something's wrong with me, and I would want to see the security footage, for that reason.
And what about her children? What about the 15-year-old girl and the 9-year-old boy?
This is too weird for me. I don't.
and what about the banana and the broken egg? And I think there was something else, like an avocado or something that was laying there. I mean, what the heck happened? Is that a residual? I mean, like, what is that? Like, how do you explain that?
I don't know. Maybe they did all their shopping in some kind of parallel universe or something, and then somehow got back home.
Rick and Morty
to their own, yeah,
some sort of Rick and Morty. And we're not laughing at these people because she was very distraught. And when I read that, her responses were very So it's obviously something that really got to her.
It's also kind of weird to hear that coming off the heels of watching that movie, The Truman Show, for the first time last night.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were watching that. I heard you watching that.
His whole life is a 24/7 broadcasted TV show. Like even his birth was broadcast for everyone, and like his whole town is this giant enclosed dome in Hollywood. And like everything and everyone in his life, and he's like 30 years old at this point, has been an actor.
Yeah.
And it's just about him realizing that he's not crazy and that he's being gaslit to believe that he's crazy.
And everything is fake.
Yeah. Pretty
sure that's not what's happening here, but
no.
And she said this was, several years ago. So I mean, her children are, a lot older now. I think her son's in his late teens or something. But the daughter's an adult. But all of them remember it very clearly. But here's one that this one now, could sound kind of like a haunting. This one's a guy in Florida, and I think he said he lived in Tampa. And but I mean, it's not that important. But anyway, he was in Florida, and he got a phone call, and I think he said this happened in 1999. But he said he got a phone call from his mother. And he's like, hello. And he answers the phone, and it's his mother's number, and he sees the caller ID, whatever. And he answers the phone, and he starts his mother's talking when he answers the phone. So he starts talking back to her, but she's not responding to him. She's in the middle of a conversation. And when he starts listening to the conversation, it's him and his mother having a conversation. And he's sitting here going like, okay, I remember this conversation happened in 1996. And it was it wasn't anything spectacular. I believe it was about his sister's wedding or something. And they were talking about the placements and stuff like that. And he was listening to the entire conversation. Like he listened to it for several minutes until it just clicked, went dead. The line went dead. So there you go. And so I asked him, I said at the time, his mother is now deceased, but I said at the time, was your mother alive or dead? He said she was very much alive. So he called his mother. He said, this is very weird. You're not going to believe what just happened to me. You called me. And for some reason you were playing. And she goes, what do you mean I was playing this? He said, well, you had to have recorded our conversation, right? And then you were playing it on the phone or something. And she's like, no. That's not what's going on here. And so his dad was there at the time, and he got on the phone and he goes, nobody called you. Like, no, we didn't call you. There was no phone call to you.
Wait, so his dad was there with his mom or with him?
Yeah, with his mom.
Oh, okay.
Like when he called his mother and said, because he thought that, she had called him for some reason. Maybe she had a recording of their conversation from 3 years before, and she was playing it.
Yeah.
And the dad was like, "No, that's not." And so I said, "Okay, let me ask you a question." I said, "Is your dad like a practical joker? Is your mom kind of?" He says, "No, they're very pragmatic people. They're not, And to this day, they don't know what that was. I don't know what that was. I can't figure it out. His mother and his dad are now both deceased. back when that happened, he was, in his like late 30s already. And so he's an older gentleman, but it begs the question of what was that? Like was it some sort of glitch in the matrix, as we call it, the glitch in time, space? Was it a haunting?
There's a theory about time that I think applies to this story and will probably apply to some of the other stories tonight, that every moment in time, like past, present, future, like everything that has happened, is happening currently, and will happen, that those moments go on infinitely. So like yesterday, like for us, yesterday came and went.
Mm-hmm.
But theoretically, according to this idea, or according to this theory, that yesterday is still happening. We're just not experiencing it. And that yesterday will continue to happen ad infinitum, just indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
I think that electronic equipment kind of somehow, some way interferes with these things that we're not supposed to see, these things we're not supposed to be able to perceive. And that's why we can see things on camera, we can't see things with our eyes, and we can hear things like on tape recorders we can't hear with our own ears. And this phone call was probably an example of that. It was probably an example of a phone line somehow accessing or interfering with this one particular moment in time, which theoretically was still happening. It's just that he wasn't experiencing it, and he wasn't meant to experience it, but he did somehow, through some process beyond my explanation.
Well, here's another little sidelight to this. The house he lived in, and he said at that time he was living like in a duplex, but he said that the duplex, in particular, not the side that he lived on, because I think he was like living in side A and there was a side B, and he said that side B was haunted. That 3 or 4 years before he moved in, someone had killed themselves in there, and people would regularly see this individual. And it was like a revolving door. People were moving in, moving out, people moving in, moving out. And I'm having lived in a haunted place, I can relate. And I even got a phone call one time of what I thought was my deceased grandfather. I heard his voice, and then the phone began to crackle, and I couldn't communicate with him. But could that be part of it? But he said that it was not a whole lot going on his side of the duplex, except one time he did wake up. He heard a scream or like a yell. He didn't say it was a scream. He said somebody yelling. And he woke up and he opened his eyes, and at the foot of his bed was this guy with light brown hair, about 6 foot tall, who was standing at the foot of his bed and was just looking around confused. When he did talk to the landlord, she told him, well, it was the landlord, the couple were the landlords, they told him that that's the description of the guy. But he had died on the other side.
Yeah.
Which the bedrooms were right against each other, the master bedrooms, the main bedrooms. And that's where he had killed himself. So, I mean, he knew the story. Do you think that could have played into this phone call?
Yeah, I think that whatever energy was on that side of the duplex, it's possible that it could have interfered or something. Like, I don't know how to explain it. There's like some kind of unexplainable energy that comes with supernatural phenomena that messes with electronic devices. And if there was already supernatural phenomena going on there, then it just makes sense that he received this phone call and heard something that he was not meant to hear. Just like a spirit is something that you're not meant to see, but you see it anyway.
Mm-hmm. And, and so he told me that he had a couple, now that you're talking about that, he did tell me there were a couple little electrical anomalies that had gone on. One, he came home and there was I believe he said a turkey pot pie that had been put in the microwave and like obviously it had been turned on and exploded. And he's like, I don't even know where he goes, it was my turkey pot pie, like out of the freezer, but I didn't put it in there. And another one was the shower. Sometimes the water in the bathroom would come on and come off. Just little stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, it wasn't really a whole lot else to tell. But it does make you think, that, hey, maybe this could be connected to a haunting. That's what I meant by that one. So, yeah, we'll move on from that one. Folks, you can draw your own conclusions on that one. Here's one. This woman, she reached out to me. They were driving from Texas to Albuquerque to visit relatives. And it was around Easter, I think, 3 years ago. And she said that her and her husband were taking turns driving. They had their children with them. And she said just as they were about to enter the city limits of Albuquerque, that her daughter becomes frantic and says, "Hey, mom," because they were the only ones awake and they were talking. And at that time, she was driving. And she's like, look to the right. And her mom goes, what? And she looks over to the right. And their exact SUV is passing them. When she looks into the SUV, she sees herself, not paying attention to her, but herself driving the SUV. And then she sees the son in the back of the SUV who was asleep in her reality, the SUV that she's in, I guess I should say. He's asleep. But when she looks over, the little boy is staring in amazement at them.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so he's over there like waving at them and then trying to get, I guess the sister looked like she was asleep. Both of the mom and the daughter said that they saw that they were asleep. And was like, it was like the little boy was actually awake. And the little boy was frantically trying to get people's attention to show them, because he recognized this is us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she slowed down and let them go ahead, and she saw the license plate and she's like, oh my gosh, same license plate, same everything.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about with this time theory. Like right here is that's what I think is happening with this story, is that they perceive themselves, or they're experiencing themselves in the present, but maybe what they're seeing is themselves either a couple minutes in the future or a couple minutes in the past. Either way, they're seeing themselves at a time that they are not experiencing themselves. What I believe they're seeing is that they are seeing themselves. Like I don't think they're seeing an illusion or like some kind of like spiritual doppelgangers, shapeshifters, anything like that. I believe that it's them, but them from another time,
a different parallel reality.
Kinda, maybe the same reality at a different point in time, slightly offset from their own time, and this is something that we're not supposed to experience, but we do. So like, okay, it would be as if me and you are sitting right here in the studio, right? And I saw myself walk through that door and start setting up all this equipment in the studio just like I did like 30 minutes ago. That's still me. It's just that I'm seeing a point in time in the past that theoretically is still happening. It's just that me in my time, I'm not experiencing it. At least I'm not meant to experience it, or I'm not meant to perceive it.
Yeah.
So but they probably saw themselves at a time that they weren't meant to perceive. And
that sounds good until you hear this part. So the doors all fly open to the SUV that's next to them. The two children crawl out onto the roof. Then the parents crawl out, and then they turn into bats and fly away, and the children turn into giant spiders and jump on there and start attacking. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah. And then they wake up.
And then they all went and had ice cream. No, folks, I'm joking about that part. But seriously, that story was a real story that was given to us. I'm joking about the giant spiders and the bats. I was trying to throw Anthony off his game there, but that's good. You're I don't know if I really think it could be a parallel, like, reality, because it was happening at the same time.
I mean, it could still be a parallel reality. It's just that what makes me apprehensive to claim that is that they saw themselves exactly as they were, and their same vehicle, same license plate, same color. I mean, like, you would think that there would, in a parallel reality, there would be at least something different, but what they saw was identical to them in this reality. So that's what makes me think that they actually saw themselves in this same reality, just at a
there was something
from a
different.
different time. What was different?
Well, in that reality, the little boy was awake. He was sitting there playing, and that was another thing. She saw him playing his little video game thing that he was always playing, and he was awake. Except her alternate her was asleep, from what she could see.
Was she asleep earlier, or maybe he was playing his video game earlier?
She said, yeah, he was always playing it, but they were on the road at the same time. So maybe
maybe they saw themselves in the future or something. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, let's see. We could debate it all day.
Yeah.
But here's one along that same vein, and this is another one. You can say, this happened in Springfield, Missouri. This guy was in front of his house, and he went outside. First of all, let me set the stage. He jogs. He gets up every day in the morning about 7 a.m. and he goes and jogs. Goes home, takes a shower, gets to work about 9:30 every day. And he said that this day he got up, went outside. He said something felt off. It just felt weird. Just didn't feel normal. You know, it wasn't like a normal day. And I just kept feeling weird, man, like something was off. And he slept longer than usual and everything was just kind of off, you know. And so he was a little bit, that I think is important too, that he said he was about 20 minutes behind. So he wasn't going to be able to jog that far. So he goes outside, starts tightens his shoes, sneakers, his running shoes. And he hears somebody running. He looks up and he gets ready to wave because he thinks, it might be one of my neighbors that jogs. There's a female that jogs too that he's friends with. And he sees a guy in a red hoodie and black shorts and these particular shoes. And the guy's got the earbuds in, whatever, and he's like, what? And he looks and he sees this guy and he starts walking down the driveway toward him. And he's like, the guy was me. He's like, that's me. That's what I was wearing the day before. He goes, I remember. He goes, I had gotten up earlier because he's, and he goes, I jog around my neighborhood about 2 or 3 times, in a loop, and I come back. And he's like, that was me. That was what I was wearing. The red hoodie, the black shorts, those particular shoes. That's what he had worn the day before. So he was watching himself do what he did the day before. I mean, that is so weird. Like, and he goes, I was just sitting there dumbfounded. And he goes, and I have proof that, he goes, I to myself, he goes, I proved to myself. He says, my neighbor was driving up, pulling into the driveway at that time because he has a neighbor that works nights. And he goes, I saw my neighbor acknowledge him and wave. And he goes, and I watched myself wave. He's like, and then I walked down to the end of the street. And as my neighbor's getting out of his vehicle, I walk across the street and the neighbor turns around and he's like, turns white as a ghost, nearly falls over. And he tells this guy, we'll call him John. He's like, John, what? I just saw you. And he goes, yeah, I just saw myself too. And they both look and they could see him turning the corner to go, loop around. And it was the freakiest thing. So he goes, they look at each other and they both get in, without even saying a word, they both get in his neighbor's SUV. They pull out and they drive around the block real quick. 2 or 3 times, they don't see him. That was it. He was gone. Poof.
That is bizarre. That kind of blows my theory out of the water because I was going to say that it's probably something that only he perceived in himself because with this time theory thing I'm talking about, I was of the opinion that that what you're seeing is your perception and yours alone. Like because people can have different perceptions of time. Like whenever you're in the zone, like doing something really physical, athletic, like you're playing baseball or football or you're fighting in a combat sport or something, and you get that slow-mo time perception. For everyone else, you're moving in real time, but your perception of time becomes like kind of warped. I was going to say that's probably what this guy was experiencing. But he wasn't the only one who saw himself from the previous day. So I don't know what that is.
Very weird. Yep. Very, very weird. And there's more, folks. This is another one. Now, this guy, I lost touch with this person, but he's from the UK. And this is something you can probably relate to, Anthony, because you're finishing up your architecture degree. You go to class, you're really tired. I mean, he was in college, and he went to class one day, and he was just really tired, and he couldn't stay awake, and he just said, "You know what? I can't fight it," and he conked out. He fell asleep in class, and he wakes up, and he's in a pod. Okay, that's what he told me. He was in like a pod. You're sleeping like a pod, and he wakes up, and he's kind of in a panic state. And he said that reality, when he woke up in that reality, it was more real than the reality that we're in. If that makes any sense to anybody listening. He said it just felt like that was the real reality. And then these 3 or 4 people came over in lab coats, and they were all like, hey, calm down. Because he started kind of getting anxious and panicking. And they were like, you need to calm down. Lay down, go back to sleep. It's going to be okay. And they gave him something. I don't remember if it was a drink or something. And because he told me this story about 3 years ago. And if you're out there, if you're listening, I would like to get more details of the story, because this is one of the stories I didn't get all the details to. We were going to get back in touch, and I lost your name. But anyway, he was in the UK. Now, here's the weird thing. He said he looked at his hands and his arm. He was a darker skinned person. In this reality, he's a reddish blonde haired guy from the UK. But in that reality, he looked at himself, and he could see himself, the image of himself in the plexiglass or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was a female, a darker skinned female that looked almost Indian.
Huh.
And they were like, calm down, go back to sleep, And then he woke up. Everything was kind of like blurry when he opened his eyes, and he was back in this reality, and he was in class.
The place that he woke up in, did it look like a modern day medical facility?
Like it was a medical facility, but like very modern, like something we don't have here in this reality.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any ideas as to what that, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, outside of just saying, oh, it was a dream, which anyone can say that, but I don't want to boil down someone's experience I don't want to trivialize someone's experience like that. I don't, outside of saying that this world we live in is some sort of simulation, which I personally don't subscribe to that. Outside of that theory, I don't really know what that is. It's just highly strange.
It's very strange. And I've pondered this one because I have another one that's very similar to that, but I don't want to talk about that one until I get more details, because this is the details that the guy gave me, and he said, hey, there's more to it, and he never did. We never did get, the whole... But that's what I remember him telling me, and then we were supposed to communicate more, and then, me, I'm on a million different projects at one time. But here's another one. Now, here's this woman had gone back home. It was Thanksgiving, and she and her son, her and her husband, her children had gone back to visit her in-laws, or her family, her mom and dad. And she had a little boy. I think she said he was like 5 or 6. And she said she went back home to visit her parents on Thanksgiving, and her son decided he wanted to go for a walk on a trail outside where they lived. And I don't know the exact location. She just said that they lived in the Northeast. That's where her parents lived. She herself is from Oregon, but they went all the way back to New England, because I don't know the exact location, and I didn't ask. But when they were walking down this trail, they encountered these little girls. These little girls were playing, and they're up in a tree. And one of the little girls falls, and her son says, oh, look, the little girl fell. And at this point, the mother starts to get really weird. She says that my body felt really hot, and I felt really anxious. And I thought, whoa, why am I feeling so weird? And she was kind of halfway paying attention and then not. And this tree house was right behind her house. And she's thinking, that's where I used to play when I was a kid. And then she says so the little boy went over to see if the little girl was okay. And she's like, hey, stop, And he just kind of ignores her and keeps going over there. And as he got closer to the tree, it got blurry and then it disappeared. And her son was in absolute shock. He was just like, whoa. And he just stood there stunned, and the whole scene just kind of vanished. Like, whoosh, it was gone. And I asked her about that too. I said, now, when I hear about things vanishing or disappearing, it's like there's different ways that it happens. And she said it was just like whoosh, it was gone. Like it was there. There was this like it got blurry for a second, then boom, it was gone. It wasn't this like fading or anything. It was just a blurriness and then gone. And so she said they didn't talk about it for years until he got older. And she asked him about it, and he had no memory of it. She said, but she remembered it, and she remembered that they watched this scene that played out, and she realized that scene that they had seen, that they watched, was her falling from that tree as a little girl.
Huh.
And she was playing with her two friends. She fell out of the tree, and she broke her wrist and sprained her ankle really bad. And she said it was very painful. And the little boy, when he got older, he don't remember it. He don't remember the incident, but she clearly remembers it. And she said her husband and her brother-in-law and his wife all remember them going back to the house and talking about it. And then her parents saying, yeah, I remember that day when you fell. It was the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And this was the day of Thanksgiving. Of course, now we know Thanksgiving falls on different days.
Uh-huh.
It's always on a Thursday, but it's not, yeah. And so they were talking about it, but the son doesn't remember anything about it. Now, here's the weird thing. I mean, the whole thing is weird, but I mean, it was like she remembers being a little girl and playing with her sister when she was a kid, and her sister and a friend. And they were climbing a tree. She fell out of the tree and sprained her ankle and broke her wrist. Now, her sister remembers the incident, but here's where it gets really weird. They had a friend with them that was there that day, and neither one of them can remember who the friend was. They can't, for the life of them, recall who it was. They thought it was a cousin when they asked that cousin, who was actually there. They showed up later at Thanksgiving because that's her mom's sister's daughter, who's a little younger than them. And she showed up with her mother because they live in the same town. And she's like, that wasn't me. I don't remember that. And they thought, well, maybe it was a neighbor kid, so she went, she was there for a couple of days. By that Saturday after Thanksgiving, she saw the neighbor who was there visiting her parents. And she's like, she was one grade ahead of her. And so she asked that lady, she's like, do you remember playing in the tree? No, has no recollection of that. So who was the little girl that they were playing with? Who knows? But it did happen. And the little boy saw it. And now her sister, brother-in-law, right? And her husband, and then her parents, they all, and then their kids too, they all remember this being talked about.
Yeah.
When they came back, and they remember the little boy talking about it. But now the little boy has no memory of this ever happening. But the adults still remember the little boy being shooken up by it and even crying.
Maybe he blocked it out of his memory.
Yeah, maybe he blocked out of his memory. But it's very weird. Another weird thing that I thought was, I said, and she said the little girls they were playing in the tree, they all had the same color hair. It was blondish brown. She thought, which I thought was weird. She's like, because I remember when I was a kid, I was always a brunette. I never had blondish brown hair.
So she saw herself with different color hair.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then in this story, I think she probably did see herself in the past, but actually in a parallel universe.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So that would explain that.
That's the only thing that comes to mind for me.
And that's your final answer?
Yeah. See, I mean, because I believe in parallel universes, but I also believe that destiny, fate, kismet, call it what you want, that it's also a real thing. That yes, there are infinite parallel universes, but at certain points in time, all of these universes converge into one, and the same exact thing happens the same exact way in every universe. I have a word for those. I call them destiny milestones. Like, for instance, the story of Christ is one of them. I don't believe that his story is any different, that the events happened any differently in any parallel universe. I believe that that's one of these milestones where every universe comes together, and after the events of these milestones take place, then every universe can branch off into their infinite pathways. But it's kind of like if you're driving, I mean, you can take practically endless routes to get to the exact same place.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. That's how I perceive parallel universes, but also rationalize believing in destiny. But the point being, the universe is probably converged at a time and place where they weren't meant to, and that's what she saw.
Man, you dumb as hell. That don't make no sense, dude. Man, you dumb, kinfolk.
Okay.
I'm messing with you. Yeah, that is a very, very, actually very intriguing and very interesting take on that. That's why I'm glad you were my co-host for this one, because I thought of all the shows that we were going to do, you needed to be the co-host on this one, because I just was like, I was telling Nelly that, and I was like, Anthony would be the best fit for this one here.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between parallel universes and time theory, which is just what I'm calling it. I'm sure there's an actual name for this theory of how time works, but I don't know what it's called. But I do believe that there's a difference between those two things.
Well, here's one for you. Back in the this happened in the early 2000s, and I was still working security, like just part time. And my boss at that time, who I actually give credit to helping me start my own business, he was like, I know you're working. I was working at the club. He goes, I know you're working at the club. Can you give me like 2 or 3 days? And I said, okay. So I started to go ahead and work 7 days a week without a day off. It was like 3 days at the club, and then 3 or 4, whatever it was, at the security post I had. And so I had a new guy that came to work with me, and I was so glad. And I had to train him, and his name was Orlando. I'll never forget him. He was a really cool guy. And if you're still out there, whatever, dude, hit me up, because you were really cool to work with. I don't know whatever happened to the guy, but anyway, he told me a really odd story. It's kind of like Groundhog Day, because he told me we were working in a building where it was haunted, and it was kind of bothering him because he had been there a couple of days and had some weird stuff happen, but it wasn't really bothering me because the buildings that I had worked in before, if anybody goes back into my archives and listens to the show, The Haunted Tower, you'll know why these little haunting things didn't bother me. I was like, man, this is a little old bull crap compared to what I went through, And he was like, man, it doesn't bother you, And I said, well, nah, because I've been through some stuff, with these ghosts and all that, Plus I live in a house that has a bunch of stuff. And he goes, how do you deal with that? And I go, well, you've never had anything weird happen to you? Because me, Anthony, I ask everybody that. I mean, I literally, that's how I get so many stories. I ask everybody I meet if they have anything weird happen to them, and everybody responds pretty, most of the time, they have something, maybe small, but small things add up. And so this guy, he goes, nah, he doesn't really have any haunting ghosts or anything like that, but I've had weird things happen. And I said, like what? So we were sitting there in the break room, and this is, like I said, I was training him that first week. And it wasn't a really hard job, but there was a lot of little things you had to do, like lock certain doors at certain times and do stuff. And it paid a little more than the other post, which was good. So, and we got to know each other pretty well. And so I asked him, I said, well, what is this thing that you had that was so weird? He goes, well, I lived the same day twice. And I was like, excuse me? And of course, at that time, I was a younger guy, and I was just like, what do you mean you lived the same day twice? Like, what are you talking about? I was kind of having a hard time, understanding what he meant by that. And so he didn't elaborate right then, but I kind of stayed after him and I said, hey man, tell me that story. What do you because he was like, well, I don't know if I should talk about it because I've always been afraid of it. I was always afraid that it would happen again and I'd be stuck like that. It really bothered him. Whatever this was, it happened to really bothered him. And so what he told me was that he went home from work one night because he was working security at another place. And I think he was from Houston or something. He was working in Houston. And he said he went home and he went to bed and as he was putting he went to bed like usual. He woke up the next day and as he was putting his clothes on, like halfway through like his morning, he realized that it was like something was off and he felt kind of groggy. And I remember him saying that he felt like he was sleepwalking through the first part of his day. And he's like, I just couldn't wake up. I wasn't fully awake. He goes, but I was cognizant of, well, that was my words, not his, but he said he was very aware that he was having extreme deja vu to the point of like everything that he was doing, he was like, I've already done this. Like, he's like, wow, that's weird. I brushed my teeth. Everything looked the same, everything, and he goes, I thought, man, my life is getting really monotonous, And he said, I even made a bowel movement. Like it was exactly everything was the exact same as the day before. He said, what really did it was when I sat down, he's like, I'm literally just half asleep, yawning on the bed. Can't really wake up, having a hard time, waiting for my coffee to finish brewing. He's like, and I am putting my socks on, to start my day, which, of course we're working nights that, the after, how it goes, Anthony, the afternoon's kind of your morning.
Yeah.
And he said he's putting his socks on. He's got one pair that were black socks with a checkered gray pattern. He said, I only had one pair like that. As I'm looking down, I'm putting them on and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. These are the socks from the day before. So then he starts going, the heck, am I wearing dirty socks? And he goes, no, I got them out of my clean drawer. And so he's like, no, these are clean socks. So he just kept going through the motions, doing whatever it was that he was doing. And he said that's when it got really weird when he realized that he was putting on the same socks from the day before. And then he said that he kept going through his day and everything kept playing out the same way as the day before. He gets to work, he opens up a box and there were donuts in there. There was a donut that had a bite taken out of it. He goes, I'll never forget. I think he said it was like one of those powdered with the chocolate inside of it. And I mean, I remember him telling me this story too. It was crazy. And he said, dude, it was like a bite taken out of it, And this guy wasn't some fanciful guy with weird, fantastic stuff. He was just a very friendly, very nice, mundane kind of guy. I remember he used to like to collect comic books. So that was one thing we hit it off, And we were sitting there talking, and he was telling me like everything in his day was happening exactly the way it happened the day before. This alarm got tripped about 2 a.m., same thing. The police showed up, and then he had to talk to the police, and it was the same two cops, and he found himself talking to the police in the same – it was like he was like, oh, my gosh, dude, what is going on here? And then he goes, okay, and he started kind of like noticing that he could time. He's like, okay, at 3:03, he looked at the guard log. He's like, I'm going to write this down. I'm going to see, because this is what happened the day before. His boss showed up. Same thing, 3:03. Like everything.
If only he could have relived the day they drew the lottery. The lottery numbers.
Exactly.
Poor guy. Yeah. Got stuck on a lame day.
It was, yeah, that's the thing. It wasn't anything spectacular.
Yeah.
And then he remembers going home in the morning and he thought, is this going to keep going like this? Is this the same day? Like, am I living the same day? Like, how does this work? And he remembers this one blue car running the red light and kind of, I mean, not like a head on, like a T-bone or anything, but it clipped the back end of this other car. And he goes, and I remember it happening. And I thought, oh my gosh, that just happened too. And then when he goes home, he goes to sleep and he thought, man, I don't want to wake up and have the same, He said, but he woke up the next day and everything was fine.
Yeah, if I were him, I would be afraid to talk about it, or I would be afraid that it would happen again, and I would get stuck there too. Because if you believe that the past is happening eternally, and you realize that you just wake up in a day that's already past, then the first thing that would come to mind for me is that if this day is happening infinitely, then am I going to be stuck here? What happens when I go to sleep?
Yeah. I mean, it's scary. I mean, like, what are you going to do?
Wish I could relive a day back in 2010 and drop $1,000 on Bitcoin or something.
Don't we all? So here's another one. And this happened to a friend of mine. Well, not a friend, but I know him over the internet, but his uncle was in Vietnam, and they started talking about weird stuff and everything. And he told him, yeah, I listened to this guy's show. He's talking about me. And he said, he talks about all this weird stuff, whatever. And so his uncle's like, I got a weird one for you. He goes, I was on a patrol in Vietnam, and there were 6 of us all together. And we came across the enemy, the VC. And he said that a firefight ensued. He's like, and then all of a sudden in the middle of it, everything just stopped. And he's like, I felt like, he goes, I was moving in slow motion. But he goes, I couldn't move my body, and I could see that no one else was moving, and I couldn't hear anything. There was no sound. No one else was moving on either side. He goes, I could see literally like in my peripheral, like the rounds being fired. They were, and he couldn't tell if they were just moving really slow, or if they were. It was just like, it was so crazy. And then he said after a few minutes of what seemed like several minutes, like it stopped. And then everybody began to move again. And they had a South Vietnamese soldier with them, and he was a translator. And they all just kind of like, whoa, this is weird. And everybody just kind of stopped firing on both sides. And they kind of retreated, and the other side retreated and went in the opposite directions. And the South Vietnamese guys said that they asked them what were they saying, because you could hear them yelling at each other. They were saying like, let's get out of here, let's go, let's retreat. And they were confused. So both sides kind of thought that it was like some kind of trick that the other side had played.
Yeah.
But the guy from Vietnam was like, no, I think they were just as scared as we were. They were freaking out. They were like, let's get out of here. So what the heck was that?
Maybe that was some kind of experimental government weapon that nobody knew of. I don't know. I mean, because considering the fact that was on a battlefield, I mean, that some kind of device that could, I don't know, like freeze people in time like that, it would give you a
and maybe they were being experimented and nobody knew.
I guess. I mean, this just random thing I'm kicking around. I mean, because I don't know, like how to plug that into the whole parallel universe or time theory or what. I don't know how that fits in there. Then it might not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing. It's strange. So here's another one. I had a friend of mine and used to work with her downtown. She was a bartender. I've known her for years. And she showed up on a Friday night downtown, and she thought it was weird. When she was driving up to downtown, there was no vehicles, no cars, nothing. I mean, like, it's all Friday night. You know that, Anthony. You've been down there a million times. Downtown Austin is packed with people at 8, 9 o'clock at night. It's already full of cars. And she gets down there, and once she gets down to about 7th Street, or I think she said 8th or 7th Street, it was between there. She went to go park, and then she realized, oh, there's parking right down there, down by the 6th. So she goes further down. She parks. There's no cars. There's nothing. She don't see any people. She's not hearing anything. It's like a ghost town, and she's like, what in the heck is going on? She gets out. She locks her car. She starts walking, and she is starting to get really freaked out. She gets really creeped out. Then she gets down to 6th Street, and right when she gets to 6th Street, she said everything looked like a blur, and then it was like people started like moving, and then she heard rah, like noise, and like it just kind of went rah, like it started up.
Yeah.
Like, and then she looks around, there's cars everywhere, there's people everywhere, and everything is moving around. People are just, it's no longer a ghost town, and then and it was like, it was at a house party, I think, that she told us. I think she told me, Squid, Diablo, and Scorpion. She told all of her, and Willie, we were all there from the old days. And she told us all. She was like, this is the weirdest thing. And because we were talking about weird space-time anomaly thing, kind of talking about that kind of stuff, And, man, I got a bunch of them from the old days with different people that have told me different stuff, But that was one I thought that I should throw in on this episode. There you go. I mean, what was going on there? I mean,
maybe there's like these transient portals that just kind of pop up and disappear like in a matter of like microseconds. And every now and then someone will be in the right place in the right time, and they'll just step through one and end up somewhere that they don't belong.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. Like, I don't know how else people are able to perceive these anomalies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very weird thing. I mean, it's just another thing she told me about that. I remember, and since then she's gone on to work. I think she works for like people that get endangered, like the animals, like not endangered, but birds in particular. They'll get these birds, and then they can't take care of them, and then she does like a bird rescue, whatever. So anyway, but that's what she's doing. I think she's doing that now. I think she was. I don't know if she's still doing it, but. She was saying that's what she did, was like this bird rescue. But she was saying that she had weird dreams for like a week after that. Like really weird dreams. And it made her quit drinking for a while. Like and then shortly after that, I remember she quit. And that's when she went in and started doing the bird rescue thing. I mean, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. Now, I did ask the lady that had the incident with her son, where she fell out of the tree and all that, if since then she had anything. She said that after that incident, her son started having really bad headaches and nosebleeds for a few years. They would come and go, and eventually they stopped. So there is some sort of after effects. Now, my friend was talking about his uncle with the Vietnam. He said that he said that after that incident, he started having really bad buzzing and ringing in his ears. It would go on for like several minutes.
Yeah. To
the point where he would have headaches. So you're going back and and I thought to ask these people, I said, were there any residuals that happened to you, like after this? And these people, almost to a person, they did have some sort of, the guy Orlando, the guy that I was telling you about, he had like really severe anxiety that set in, that was with him to the day I met him.
Yeah.
Because of what happened.
I mean, it makes sense because in the same way the human body is not designed to go out into space just naturally by itself, but we're also not designed to go into these places somewhere in between our reality and some other reality or some other universe or some other dimension. Like we're not physically supposed to be in these spaces, but I think these people just happen to be like I said, in the right place at the right time to step through these portals or anomalies, whatever they are, some kind of tears in the space-time continuum, and they end up there. And when they get back, their bodies, like physically, they're not the same afterwards.
And the guy that saw himself jogging with the red hoodie on from the day before, he didn't report anything. He said he didn't feel anything.
Well, maybe what he saw may not be some kind of time slip or something. I mean, maybe what he saw was like an actual doppelganger. Yeah,
I mean, I bet him and his neighbor went and gave chase and didn't see anything.
Yeah. There's actually a 4chan kind of like a creepypasta that it's not a creepypasta, but it's along the same. It's like a fictional horror story that they made called The Backrooms, which is kind of actually based on these people's experiences or experiences similar to them. It's like if you do what's called no clip. No clip is a term that video game developers use on their video games when they're making them, so that they can take the little character and go through walls, ceilings, floors, all this stuff. You know, like if you're playing a video game and you end up like glitching at somewhere and you go through a wall and you see stuff that's just not programmed there, like whatever. Your little character ends up somewhere that it was never programmed to end up. That's what no clipping is. The fictional backroom story goes that like one day you're living your life every day the same way you usually do, but you end up no clipping through a wall or through a floor. You end up somewhere called the back rooms, which is just like an infinitely expanding maze of empty office space with like yellowing beige wallpaper, buzzing fluorescent lights, and like beige carpet.
Basically, you're in an infinite DMV.
Yeah, pretty much. But except it's just empty office space. There's no windows, no furniture, no nothing, and you're the only one there. You have to find your way out. But the point is, like, that concept, I think, was pretty heavily inspired by the type of encounters that these people that we talked about tonight have had. Because you end up somewhere you're not meant to be. It's not due to anything that you do or that you've done. I think you just happen to be in the right place and the right time.
And folks, you know, that's all the time we have for tonight. And there's more. I mean, there's more of these. I got a whole bunch more. I mean, not a whole bunch, but I got a lot. I had a guy that had everything stop, and you know, another one that was just. I mean, there's a bunch of these. I could just go on. I mean, there's at least 4 more. I'll tell you what I'll do, folks. If you guys show up on the live stream this coming Tuesday, I'll throw a couple more in there. Along with whatever we're going to be talking about next week, because there's definitely some more stories out there like this. So, you know, for tonight, that's where we're going to end it. I hope you enjoyed it. It gives you, you know, something to think about, and hopefully you don't no clip yourself, you know, through the wall when you go to sit on the toilet in the morning.
Yeah, you don't want to end up in an empty Sears office, just a buzzing of fluorescent light and nothing else.
Or did you say Sears?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Sears down over there at Hancock Center here in Austin.
Yeah, like whenever we worked that place and it was empty, and like I went in there during the day, it reminded me of that, because it's just there's something weird about a space that's usually supposed to be full of things and or people, and it's just big and empty. It's actually a thing on YouTube, on the internet. It's called a liminal space. I'm not going to get into it, but you can look it up. It's just it makes the place creepy when it's like an empty shopping mall or something like that, you know. But yeah, that's what the back rooms are. It's a liminal space that you end up in and you're not supposed to be. And so, you know, just make sure that you avoid all those the space-time anomalies that you can't see, hear, or predict. Good luck.
Yeah. So, folks, thank you for listening to Paranormal Round Table, and be sure and tune in on Tuesdays between 7:30 and 8:30, like Anthony said. That's when we usually get started, and we go 2 to 4 hours. And you never know how long we're going to go or what we're going to do and who's going to show up and what kind of guests we're going to have. We have all kinds of people that come and go. And so, thank you for listening. And next Friday, we'll begin a 3-part series with Bettina Moss. We're going to be talking Dogman and the nature of just about everything. And so I guess for everybody here at PRT, good night.
Good night.